We are in Likutey Moharan, Torah Yudet. We're up to Sif Chet, part 8 in Torah 19, which is called Tefilah LaChavakuk. And in this Torah, Rebbe Nachman is explaining to us the process of purifying and rectifying the physicality in the world, the physicality in our own personal world, our own body, our own physical self, purifying it and rectifying it to a state of infinite and eternal complete life, which is called Itzachai. And when it's in such a state, it becomes clear like a mirror. It is clear like a mirror. And anyone who is less than that state of perfection, that gazes upon such a perfect, holy tzaddik, will recognize, see within themselves, just like when you look in a mirror and you see what is not perfect, whatever is lacking, they will see in themselves whatever is not perfect, whatever is lacking, and they will be intrinsically motivated and guided and helped to rectify those aspects within themselves. This is why there's a tremendous significance in hearing Torah, going to hear Torah directly from this tzaddik. So you're not only gazing upon such a holy being, but you're also hearing Torah directly from him, and hearing Torah directly from him. When you hear the words directly from such a tzaddik, those words are infused with the consciousness of the tzaddik. They're infused with the Yirat Shamayim of the tzaddik. And Yirat Shamayim, the Gemara teaches us, has the characteristic that Dvarav Nishma'im, the words of someone that are spoken from a state of Yirat Shamayim, awe of Ribbon Shalom, a deep recognition, a profound awe and recognition of Hashem's greatness. That the words that are infused with that consciousness are the most influential, the most effective. Not just influential on a physical level. Nowadays, there are many, many influencers, they call them influencers, that are just speaking to the egos of people. And so they're tremendously influential in that way. And that's called Malchut de Sitra Achra. That's the Malchut of the other side, right? The influence and the power to influence people by guiding them, by drawing upon the motivators, the motivation of the ego. That's called Malchut Hanhaga Manhig de Sitra Achra, a leader from the side of the Klippa. So those are the influencers that we have a lot of today. But the Gemara teaches us about a different type of influencer, okay? That Mish Yesh Bo Yirat Shamayim Dvarav Nishma'im, one who has this consciousness of Yirat Shamayim, his words are heard. Okay, and so that's the one who is able to influence the soul in the person to surface, come to the surface and to be empowered so that the ego of the person is dissolved and included and integrated within the whole, within the soul, within the pure self. That's what Rebbe Nachman is teaching us in this Torah, that's why it's so important to go and hear Torah directly from the tzaddik, not only gazing upon his holy face, where you have this mechanism of the mirror happening, right? You're intrinsically, inherently motivated to rectify those aspects within yourselves that are less than pure, less than completely pure and clear. And at the same time, you're hearing Torah directly from the tzaddik, and those words are infused with the Yirat Shamayim, the consciousness of the tzaddik. And that influences your soul to come to the surface, to be empowered, to guide, that you should be guided by your soul. You should be led by your soul as opposed to being led by the ego. And the process that Rebbe Nachman teaches us, the formula that he teaches us, is to overcome, to dissolve the burning furnace, he calls it, the burning furnace of lust for immoral, sexual, illicit behavior, illicit, immoral sexual behavior, purifying your sexuality to a state of what's called tikkun brit. You do this you merit this through the degree of your shleimut Lashon HaKodesh, your perfection of the holy language. That means that you're speaking not only holy words, but you're speaking them in a holy way. So it's not just what you speak, it's how you speak. And when what you speak and how you speak is holy, then that causes your sexuality to be channeled in a holy, productive way, in a way that will cause more blessings to be created as opposed to destruction. Okay? Maskil instead of mishakel. And this is in effect what empowers the holy language, which is the life energy within us, which is the tree of life, which is the woman of valor, which is the yirat shamayim, the fear of Hashem, that consciousness of awe and greatness of the Ribbon Shalom. And that, says Rebbe Nachman, we merit that through speaking what we speak and how we speak in a holy way. And when we speak in a holy way, when we perfect the holy language, and all of our words are in order to bring revelation of Hashem's light throughout the world, throughout the whole world, the outer world, and throughout our inner world, then we will merit not only holy sexuality, but then that holy sexuality that we merit, the tikkun, the brit that we merit, will further increase our tikkun and brit. Well, it will further increase our perfection of the holy language, our holiness of speech. So there's holiness of the brit and the holiness of speech. And they're both connected, they're both one. And they're the same aspect that is just manifested in two different levels. Two sides of the same coin, so to speak. Even though they're both on the same side, they're not opposing to each other. They're just two different manifestations of the same thing, of the same aspect. And Rabbi Nachman explains to us now, the next part of the formula, that to the degree and to the extent that we have merited to perfect the holy language are the letters of the Torah, which are found throughout everything in the universe, everything in the world. The life source of that thing, the soul of that thing, are the words of Torah, the 22 letters of the Torah, plus the 10 sefirot. So the 10 sefirot are the source. Okay, it's like the 10 utterances through which Hashem created the world. Through 10 utterances, Hashem created the world. And then from those 10 utterances, from those 10 sefirot caused, from there is drawn the 22 letters. And so 10 plus 22, we said is 32, which represents the 32 times that Elohim is mentioned in the creation of the world. And that's the source of all of existence. And that's what is still in everything in existence, because the world was not just created and then Hashem left the world, as we know from Kabbalah and Chesed. In order, in every moment, the existence of everything that is in the universe, in the world, physically and spiritually, all is completely dependent on the fact that Hashem is constantly giving it existence. And each and every moment, Hashem is deciding to bring this back into existence, from nothing to being, from nothing to everything, from nothing to everything. Mi'ayin liyesh. From nothingness to beingness, to everythingness. Okay, and so in each and every moment, through what is Hashem giving life and existence to each and every particle, each and every part of the universe and the world, physically and spiritually, is through the 32 Elokims within all of creation. And the 32 Elokims are comprised of the 10 sefirot and the 22 letters of the Aleph Bet. 10 and 22 is 32. And these are within everything. And that's called Lashon HaKodesh. This is called the holy language. The holy language is the language of creation. It's the language through which Hashem created the world and through which Hashem is constantly creating the world. And when Rabbi Nachman says, when we complete and perfect and empower the holy language in our inner world, in our inner reality, in our inner experience, then that causes that everything in the outer world, in the outer reality, in the objective experience, the letters of the alphabet, those 22 letters, those sparks of creation, the Lashon HaKodesh within everything that gives existence to everything, will be empowered, will shine, will be illuminated, and I will see that. I will tap into that. I will start experiencing that. Okay? And then in every experience, in every experience that I have, every interaction with the physical world, everything that I eat, everything that I drink, every interaction where I enjoy anything from this physical world, I will be able to not only pay attention to, and I will not only be able to pay attention to the light, the illuminated 22 letters of the alphabet in that thing. I will not only be able to pay attention to the soul, the spiritual, the godliness in everything, but I will also be able to experience that soul, that godliness, those 22 letters of the Torah. And so then I will come to a point where everything that I enjoy, the nurturing of my physical body, the DNA, what gives it existence in each moment, the proteins that build it, okay, this will be from the spiritual, from the soul of the universe, okay? And so that means that I'm living from life. That's basically the goal of everything. We want to be living on life. We don't want to be nurtured from death. What happened by the tree of knowledge of good and evil was that the serpent, the primordial serpent, the Nachash HaKadmoni, he injected his venom in Chava, and Chazal teaches, the Torah teaches us, that is the source of all death. When a person nurtures his body from the death aspect in this mixture that we call the world is a mixture of good and bad. And when a person nurtures their body from the death in the world, then death has power on that person. And that person becomes a temporary being. Okay? But when a person nurtures themselves constantly with the life in everything that they're eating and everything that they're drinking and everything in this mixture, they're empowering the life because they're nurturing themselves with the life. They are causing the life to come to surface, to be empowered, to be prioritized, to be seen, to be experienced, and the death falls away. Right? That's what we called in the Targum. We want to empower the Lashon HaKodesh. We want to cause the 70 languages to fall away, to be canceled out, and we want to cause the Lashon HaKodesh to be empowered, to come to the surface. And so when you nurture yourself with the Lashon HaKodesh, with the holy language, you're nurturing yourself with the life in the universe, with the life in the world, with the life in the food that you're eating and the drink, whatever that you're drinking. And so your physical self is now alive. It's living from life. Okay? And this is our purpose in this world. This is how we rectify the original sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is also how we rectify the world of chaos that we said preceded this world, the Olam HaTohu. Okay? And so this is the formula that Rebbe Nachman is teaching us in this Torah. He's teaching us that when we live in this way of empowering the Lashon HaKodesh, we will merit to be nourished by the holy language and everything that we are experiencing in this world. And then our bodies will be nurtured and nourished by the life in the world, by the soul of the world. And then our physical body is no longer blocking the light of infinite life within us. And then we become clear like this mirror that we spoke about. Okay, and so that's where we're up to now. Potchet in this Torah, part 8 in this Torah. Rebbe Nachman is just going to explain a little bit further this concept of nourishing yourself with the 22 letters of the alphabet. And Rebbe Nachman is going to explain to us in this part of the Torah that it's not just about recognizing the 22 letters of the alphabet, specifically which one of the 22 letters are in that thing that you're eating, in that thing that you're drinking, in that thing that you're enjoying. It's not just about recognizing which letters are in that thing, giving it life. Because, says Rebbe Nachman, you can recognize all of that because you're tremendously wise. You have tremendous wisdom, Kabbalistic wisdom. Also, Rebbe Nachman is going to say that you have an understanding of the elements of the world and the physical elements that make up everything. But that's not what we're going for here. Rebbe Nachman says it's not just about recognizing, knowing which letters of the Torah are giving life to each and everything that we are enjoying and experiencing. It's about experiencing those letters in the Torah, in everything that we're eating. It's not about recognizing, it's not about knowing that these are the letters of the Torah that are giving life to this thing that I'm eating right now. It's about being able to, as I'm eating that food, be completely tapped into the nourishment that comes from the soul in the food, the nourishment that comes from the letters of the Torah in the food, and not drawn after the physical, the primordial serpent, the venom of the primordial serpent in the food, not be drawn after the enjoyment of the physicality of the food. Instead, be completely tapped into the enjoyment that comes from the soul in the food, that comes from the letters of the Torah in the food. That's what we're going for. It's not about recognizing the letters in the food. It's not about recognizing where is the soul and what letters of the Torah are in this food. It's about being tapped into those, into that, so that your complete enjoyment and nourishment that comes to you from that food is exclusively from the letters of the Torah in that food. That's what he's going to explain to us in this part here. V'chol chacham pashut, perush, shu chacham nevad, af al pi she'eno tzaddik, יכול לדע האותיות שבו נברא הדבר הזה שאוכל. כי מי שיודע הכוח של מתיקות ומרירות, חריפות ומליחות, שזה מרכך וזה מקשה, וזה מגדיל וזה מקטין, וזה מחבץ וזה מרחיב, ויודע התחלקות האותיות שנחלקים לשלוש אימות אמש, ושבע כפולות, ו12 פשוטות, ויודע האותיות השייכים לכל ספירה וספירה, ויודע הכוח של כל ספירה שזה רך וזה קשה. אזי על ידי שטועם איזה דבר, או רואה איזה דבר, הוא יודע ומבין הצירופי האותיות שבו נברא זה הדבר. So says Rebbe Nachman, that any simple, wise person, intelligent person, what does it mean that he is just wise? It means that he's wise, he's a chacham, but he's not a tzaddik. There are two levels. There's a chacham, intellectual wisdom, and then there's a tzaddik, is when you experience, your life is in alignment with that wisdom. You're living that wisdom. That's called a tzaddik. And so if a person is just a chacham, so he's wise, he's capable of knowing the letters with which that thing that he is eating was created, right? So for someone who is knowledgeable in the factors of the sweetness and bitterness, these are all the different aspects, that different characteristics of food, of anything in the world. They're made up of different they're different spectrums. So you have the sweetness and bitterness spectrum. On one side it's sweet and the other side is bitter, and then in the middle it's a mixture of the two, and some things are more sweet and some things are more bitter and some things are in the middle. You have sharpness and saltiness. You have the soft. What's soft? Something is soft. Sometimes it's hard and crunchy, and sometimes it's soft, right? You have something that causes an expansion in the food, or in anything in the world, and something that causes it to be reduced, okay? A reduction. You have something that constricts, and something that expands, something that enlarges and something that reduces, okay? So you're aware of all these differences. You look around the world and you see that everything in the world is sometimes, this thing is hard and something else is soft. This thing is expanded and this thing is constricted. This thing is enlarged and this thing is reduced. This thing is sweet and this thing is more bitter. This thing is sharp and this thing is salty, or less sharp, or more salty, or less salty, right? And so these are all the different characteristics, and you're also aware of at the same time. So you have tremendous wisdom to be aware of all these different characteristics and to be able to pinpoint in everything in your experience how much of each one of these characteristics does this thing have. So it takes a lot of wisdom, a lot of awareness, okay, a lot of knowledge. And at the same time, you're also very, very knowledgeable in the Kabbalah of knowing how everything is split up to. All of these elements, all of these characteristics that we just mentioned have a corresponding letter of the alphabet. So there is a certain letter in the alphabet that represents sweetness to a certain extent. There's a certain letter of the 22 letters of the alphabet that represents bitterness, a certain letter that represents saltiness, a certain letter that represents more of the sharpness, depending on what sefirah. The 10 sefirot are represented by the 22 letters, which then have a physical manifestation, a physical representation in everything that we see, in all these characteristics that we just mentioned: saltiness, sweetness, sharpness, hard, soft, enlarged, reduced, expanded, constricted. All of these characteristics are just physical representations of certain letters in the alphabet. There is the letters that represent saltiness, letters that represent sharpness, etc. Expanded, constricted, reduced, enlarged, all of these different characteristics. And which are, those 22 letters are also a representation of one of the 10 sefirot, or a combination of certain sefirot. Like we said, you have certain things that are a little bit sweet and a little bit bitter, a little bit sharp and a little bit salty, a little bit constricted and a little bit expanded. There's combinations of these elements, and therefore there are combinations of the letters of the alphabet in each one of these things. And therefore there are combinations of the sefirot behind those 22 letters in each one of these things that we're eating, that we're drinking, that we're enjoying, that we're experiencing in the physical world. And so all of that knowledge, all of that awareness, says Rebbe Nachman, comes down to your wisdom. Okay, very good. So you know all that? You're tremendously wise. Oh, you're one of the wisest men in the world. But you're still not a tzaddik. That's what Rebbe Nachman wants to say here. So he says, he points out here how the letters of the alphabet. We know from Sefer Yetzirah that the letters of alphabet are split up into, this is really interesting, they're split up into 3 categories. Okay, the 3 letters of Emesh, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Aleph is at the beginning of the alphabet, Shin is at the end, and Mem is in the middle. They're split up into then also, and each one, and these 3 letters, Emesh, are the mothers of all the other letters, and they are also split up into 3 categories. Okay, so the letters of the alphabet are split up into 3 categories. The letters of Emesh, the 3 letters of Emesh, Aleph, Mem, Shin, then the 7 letters of Beged Kaparat. Okay, Beged Kaparat. And in Diktuk, in linguistics, of the Hebrew language, and how the vowels interact with the letters, that certain vowels on specific letters sound differently than on other letters, right? Like we know, the chaf, when there's a dot in the middle, it becomes a kaf. The pei as well. Okay, so certain letters have a different, they sound differently. There's a different meaning, a different interaction when the vowels interact with those letters. There's a different experience of those letters. Those letters sound differently. Okay, that's in the diktuk of the Hebrew language. And so you have the 7 letters of Beged Kaparat, which have specific laws in the Hebrew and the linguistics of the Hebrew language. And then you have the rest of the 12 letters of the alphabet. Okay, so that's one way of splitting up the whole 22 letters into three parts. But now in each one of these 3 parts, you put you put some of them in the right side category, which represent the Chesed, okay, the kindness and the expansion. You put the middle letters in the category of judgment. So the second letters, middle part of the Aleph Bet is Din. And then afterwards, the end part of the Aleph Bet represents the sweetening of that judgment, the balance of that, okay? And that's Rachamim, which is compassion. Compassion is the sweetening of judgment with kindness. And that's the balance. And so, which is interesting because we were speaking in this Torah a lot about balance. It's all about balance. Okay, it's all about the matkila. We spoke about the first line in sefirot Pnimiyut at the beginning of this Torah. Before there was balance, there was the world of chaos. Okay, so everything here is about balance. It's about minimizing the evil, minimizing the klipa, and empowering the kedusha. Okay, and so then in this place of the mixture of good and bad, you want to minimize the klipa and empower the kedusha. And that causes that all of the negative, the concealment in that mixture place becomes integrated in the side of holiness. And so then there's a perfect balance. That's when there's a perfect balance. Okay, when the two sides are working harmoniously, and the negativity becomes a throne or a catalyst for the empowerment and the revelation of the positive, okay, of the holiness. Okay, and so this is a theme that we see throughout this Torah, the balance. And so in the letters of the Torah, you also have the balance. You have the side of kindness and the side of judgment, and you have the balance between them, the compassion. Okay, but that's just a footnote. That's just a side point. Anyway, so Rebbe Nachman is explaining to us here how we have the 22 letters split up into all of these different characteristics, these different elements. And then when you taste something or you see something, you're able to recognize from what you're tasting and what you're seeing, oh, this thing is a little bit more sweet, or this thing is a little sharp. Oh, this thing is a little hard. This thing a little bit expanded, a little bit constricted. Whatever it is, you're able to pay attention and know, based on what you are experiencing, what elements are behind that. What is the composition of that thing? What is it made of? What is it comprised of? What are the letters of the Torah that are making up that thing? What are the sefirot, the combination of the letters of the Torah and the combination of the sefirot that are at the root of the existence of this thing? כי כל דבר משתנה בטעמו וריחו ותמונתו, הכל לפי צירופי אותיות של לשון הקודש, ששקל הקדוש ברוך הוא בחוכמתו ברצונו הפשוט כך וכך אותיות שיברא בהם דבר זה, וכך וכך אותיות שיברא בהם דבר זה. Because each and everything in existence, everything that we are experiencing, everything that we see, that we smell, everything has a specific taste, a specific smell, and a certain appearance. And all of that, the smell, the shape, the taste, is depending entirely upon the permutations of the letters, the combinations of the letters of the holy language. Because Hashem, with his infinite wisdom, and with Hashem's intention of how the world, everything, every detail in the world will bring to the fulfillment of that original intention that Hashem had in creating the world, he weighed exactly, okay? So everything is exact, everything is weighed. This is the balance, this is the scale where everything is weighed, okay? Everything is exact. How much sweetness and how much bitterness, how much constricted, and how expanded, how hard, how soft, okay? All of these different characteristics, all of these different elements that each and everything in the whole universe must have in order to bring about, right, to complement and to bring about the fulfillment of the original intention of Hashem in creating the world. And so everything is weighed. That's the scale that we're speaking about, okay? And Hashem weighed how many letters like this should be in this food that you're eating, and how many letters like that should be in it, because it's a combination of certain letters. It's a permutation of certain letters based on What are the elements that should be in this thing in order to bring about the fulfillment of that original intention of Hashem? So this thing should have this amount of letters of that and this amount of letters of this. So many letters with which to create this thing and so many letters with which to create that thing. And that's all to bring about the fulfillment of the original will, the original intention that Hashem had in creating the world. Because everything in this universe, everything is the world, nothing is wasted. Everything has a specific purpose. Okay? And everything has its part in that original intention of Hashem. And so we'll see more about that in the next year of Bezrat Hashem, in the continuation of this part in this Torah.